One. That was New Edition Candy Girl. You couldn't go anywhere over the last couple of days without hearing the story, the tragic story of Gabby Petito, who had gone on a trip with her boyfriend, and he returned, and she was missing, and it required law enforcement all over the country, 50 federal officers from all over the country searching multiple states, finally finding her, unfortunately, and her remains. And now her boyfriend is a person of interest, and they are looking for him. And one of the things that you heard constantly is about the indigenous missing women, about black women, and about brown women who are missing and certainly do not receive that much attention. Generally, if a white woman comes up missing, they are going to be forced. They're going to, particularly in the case of Gabby Petito, they galvanized a national force and galvanized the country and made sure that they made an effort to find her. Generally, brown girls, when they come up missing, they may get a poster on the telephone pole between the missing cat and the 2005 Honda Accord for sale. But what is also true is that there's a certain amount of tribalism in virtually every aspect of our society. If you take lab rats in a controlled environment are going to do what they can to help other lab rats with the same markings. They will share resources with them. They will help them if they get in trouble. There's tribalism involved in virtually every aspect of our society, including the animal world. But what I noticed about Gabby Petito, in addition to the fact that the law enforcement was galvanized, law enforcement was actioned and went on the offensive looking for Gabby, I noticed any number of witnesses. There was a witness that called in and talked about how he'd seen her being hit. There were a few witnesses that saw that. There were witnesses that called in and talked about how she looked distraught in a restaurant. There were people all along the way tweeting about what they had saw. They became witnesses. They became active. They tried to let everybody else know what was going on. I think we have an obligation to do the same. Can we honestly say that if we saw a domestic situation that we would be as involved? Can we honestly say that if we saw somebody troubled, we would be involved? Or would that be someone else's business? Well, I stay out of people's business. I mind my own. Sometime to get the results that we need, we're going to have to be more obtrusive. If we value the women that are missing, the women in our lives, we're going to have to decide whether we want the motto of snitches get stitches, or we want people to be able to come home. We want our women to be given the same respect that Gabby Petito was. Because one of the things that has to happen is they have to see that people are motivated. They have to see that people are trying. They have to see that people are action. People are trying. They're going to say, we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that this woman is found. If you see somebody who is in distress, would you say the same things? Would you call? Would you make sure that you did? I'm talking about in a domestic situation. Or would you look the other way and say it's none of my business? Because if we want the same kind of interaction with law enforcement, which may never happen, we have to do things ourselves. We have to become our sister's keepers. And that involves belaying either a motto or a mantra and saying, I'm going to throw that aside and I'm going to make sure, I'm going to be obtrusive. I'm going to make sure that I make sure this sister is all right. I'm going to make sure that I chronicle these things so if she comes up missing, we know where to start looking. You have to make sure that we are witnesses, because one of the things that happen, these women don't just disappear. Somebody sees something. They don't just go away. Somebody sees somebody doing something they shouldn't be doing. And are we going to be as as motivated as they have been in these last particular cases? We have to decide that if they're not going to do it, we will. Listen, I've watched Black Twitter turn Georgia blue. I watched Black Twitter make some of the biggest movies and be integral in making movies huge and stars out of people and make music fly. I've watched Black Twitter find a Karen for saying something in Hoboken, New Jersey. And 30 minutes later, they'll find out where she lives, where she works, and they will have that woman fired. What if we decide that that is going to be the action we bring to bear when one of our young women is coming up missing? What if because if we can do those things, if you can turn Georgia blue, if you can make sure that people get elected, if you can make sure things happen, if you can make sure people are brought to account, can't we use some of that energy to make sure that our sisters are all right? Can't we use some of that energy to make sure that we chronicle and make sure that we know where they are and make sure that they have a trail to start looking at? If we can find a Karen, we should be able to damn well find a Shantae. That's a little note from the GED section. We got the Jazz Report come up in 15 minutes. It is the D.L. Hughley Show.